a year and a half ago, my wife and I had this wild idea that we didn't want our kids to go to public school. Got hooked up with Matt Bedreau and Tim Kennedy, and we opened an Apogee school. So now I still do mortgages, still run a coaching business, and now my wife is running an Apogee school along with her partner, Andrea. And we opened up a private school about 3 months ago here in Henderson, Nevada. And so now we're juggling a lot of we're juggling a lot of balls, spinning a lot of plates right now.
Welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their stories for you and I to grow in our craft. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 11 to 18, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on her 21st year of marriage. So yeah, my friend, I'm in the thick of it, and I am working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have the greatest opportunity to impact our world through the way we embrace our fatherhood role. This episode is brought to you by the Adventure of Fatherhood, helping men discover their powerful fatherhood role and build their fatherhood skills. The role of the father is to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of it all. Today's guest is my friend Scott Groves, and we have a great time. We laugh, we cry, and just all around dig into the beautifully messy reality of fatherhood. Scott has great stories and opens up his field notes to share them all. Enjoy meeting my friend, Scott. All right, Scott Groves, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes. How are you feeling today?
Awesome, man. Just got out of the dentist, so we're all good.
Okay, so tell us, how did you get into the dentist?
So I violated my diet, and some power from above, as I was eating the milk dud, allowed the milk dud to rip off the crown in my mouth, so left like a totally exposed tooth last night and had to rush in for a little dental emergency this morning. So that's what I get for violating my diet.
Yeah, bro. Like Halloween is a week away. So milk dud is definitely Halloween candy. Was the milk dud you had in one of those little yellow boxes? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So
I'm going to have like an after dinner dessert.
Yeah.
Off the damn tooth.
So is this candy that you bought to hand out for trick-or-treaters and it's like it just made its way open at your house?
Yeah, that might have had something to do with it.
Okay, so bro, my kryptonite or crack is the candy corn. So bro, it's so the other night I got home and I was off my diet for my food for like a few days because I was on a trip, and I came home and there was 2 bowls in my house, like one right when you walk in and one right on the coffee table. I told my wife, like, dude, you can't have this around me. And I was like, I'm just going to handle this situation right now. I just crushed both bowls, so it was all gone. So that's kind of was my solution to the problem.
Candy corn has got to be the most divisive candy in the world. People love it, or they like cringe at it. Like I
saw you cringe. Yeah, when I said candy corn, you looked like I had said, something disgusting. So maybe you just, maybe my palate's a little bit more mature. I don't know. I don't know. Milk duds, that's probably a more sophisticated candy than candy corn. But I also like some milk duds.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I got to ask real quick, are you hearing me okay? Because like my camera keeps switching back and forth between my fancy Yeti mic and just the laptop. So hopefully everything's okay there.
I hear you just fine.
All right, perfect.
Okay. All right. So last question on the Halloween candy is, when your kids come home with a bag of candy, what is the candy that you dig through their bag and you're like confiscating because you want to eat it?
Oreos and Kit Kats. Like those two are just horribly addictive for me.
Yes. Okay, beautiful. Mine is the 100 grands. Like, I don't even know if you can get those. See, another cringy face. Those have caramel in them, bro. Come on. It's hilarious. Okay, that's what mine are. All right, love it. So, dude, how old do you find yourself today?
So I am 44 as of this fine year, 2024. And, waited till I have kids later in life, I thought. Just trying to do all the things to stay healthy and physical and whatnot to keep up with a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and then I have a 22-year-old.
Okay, 6-year-old, 8-year-old, and 22-year-old. We'll get into that in a little bit. How many years you been married?
Been married just shy of 10 years. Our anniversary is coming up here.
Oh,
And
sick.
I got super lucky with Miss Karina. She's a saint.
That's awesome, bro. Okay, so 10 years in, what are you guys going to do for your 10-year anniversary?
I don't know, man. It's 10 years, so I feel like I should do something big. But I got to tell you, my wife and I, thank goodness for me, we're not big into like holidays and
Yeah.
celebrations and birthdays. As a matter of fact, our first two anniversaries, the only reason we knew it was our anniversary is because my sister had texted us, "Hey, congratulations on your first anniversary." We kind of looked at each other. We were like,
That's hilarious,
we
bro.
go to dinner or something, I guess, like something. And then by year two, we had our first kid. And by year three, we had our second kid. So it's just been like, it's been wild.
Yeah, funny. Yeah, anniversaries haven't been a big deal for us really either. Birthdays, yeah, those are kind of a bigger deal, but anniversaries, not so much. Yeah, I don't know, but got to do something. I guess it's an excuse to do something fun, but maybe it's not a big deal because you guys are just dating and having fun, not necessarily needing a special day to do that. Is that true for you?
Yeah, I think that's true. My wife and I travel really well together. So, I know a lot of couples that like they travel and the husband's mad because he likes to do things this way and the wife's pissed off because she likes to do things that way. But every time we're feeling a little bit of that disconnection, we've lived either in Los Angeles or Las Vegas our whole life. I mean, we can be door to door from our house to our favorite resort in Cabo in like under 6 hours with travel time and everything.
Yeah.
So when we're feeling a little disconnected or a little stressed out by life or the kids are driving us nuts, we'll go do like a quick Cabo trip or a staycation, a hotel. And we just reconnect really fast with travel or just time away from the hustle and bustle of our businesses and our house and all that type of stuff. So
how many times a year do you do that?
We do something along those lines at least 3 times a year.
Really?
Seems like every 4 to 5 months we're a little out of whack, and it's like we find a budget deal to go down to Cabo, or her mom has a timeshare down there. I mean, you can still travel to Mexico pretty cheap if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you marry a Latina and they speak Spanish, everything's half price in
Game change.
Mexico versus us gringos. We just get raked across the coals.
Yeah. So, okay, this is a cool concept. So, do you have trips that are on the calendar, or one of you like, yo, we need time away, and then from that statement, how long until your wheels up?
Yeah, so I've actually got on my floor here a big wall-sized calendar because this coming week, we're filming this in October of 2024. This coming weekend, we're going to go into our family planning session for the year. So putting mastermind retreats, the coaching groups that we do, we try to pre-plan 2 vacations a year, one with the kids, one without the kids. And then I'd say at least once or twice a year, we just kind of look at each other and it's like, hey, I'm pissing you off. You're pissing me off. We're getting on each other's nerves. Within the next 10 days, we need to go do something and just check out. And sometimes it's an overnight. Sometimes if time permits, it's like I said, 4 or 5 days in Cabo. And it's almost instantaneous because we can really tell when, it was funny during COVID at one point, she's like, yeah, I know when I lost my shit during COVID because I wasn't having any adult interaction and everything was stressful. Like I literally yelled at Scott for eating the leftovers out of order. And he kind of just looked at me. And in that moment, I realized how frustrated and crazy I was going. Like, I just yelled at my husband about eating leftover food out of order. And we left for Cabo like the next day. We were like, drop the kids at the mother-in-law's. We need some time away to just unwind, sit by the pool, have a lot of hotel sex, and regroup.
Yes, bro. And I love it because that's possible for anybody, right? Like, even if it's a local hotel, couple nights. And the other thing is, I think the whole, just like an evening date or even just one night away, you kind of got to have a couple nights to really disconnect you from work, most likely, and then spouse from the kiddos. Like that's kind of generalizing, but probably accurate for a lot of the dudes listening. Is like instead of when you find yourself pissed or she's pissed, instead of just being like, well, kind of F this and just go into silence mode for 2 weeks, like, dude, just cancel all your shit, go get a hotel and hang out, reconnect, make it happen.
Yeah, the work will still be there. The kids will still be there. yard projects will still be there. I need to make sure my wife is still there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the point, that it's really easy to put our wife at the on the list of she'll always be there. But as we look around, that is not the case. There's always going to be work, dude. Your job, your career will always be there. And your wife may not, so don't neglect that. Scott, in a couple of minutes or less, what do you do for a living to provide value out in the world and feed the family?
Yeah, thanks for asking, man. So I'm a loan officer by trade, 25 years of putting people in debt for 30 years. We've had some success with that. And so that led to a coaching business for loan officers. That led to writing a book. And just in the last year or two, partially because the mortgage industry is suffering, but partially because I've leaned more into the coaching and the speaking. A couple of years ago, we had a shift where the family's making more money off the coaching than we are off the mortgage. And then about a year and a half ago, my wife and I had this wild idea that we didn't want our kids to go to public school, got hooked up with Matt Bedreau and Tim Kennedy, and we opened an Apogee school. So now I still do mortgages, still run a coaching business, and now my wife is running an Apogee school along with her partner, Andrea. And we opened up a private school about 3 months ago here in Henderson, Nevada, and so now we're juggling a lot of balls, spinning a lot of plates right now.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's funny. I think a lot of people go, man, I wish my kid didn't have to go to school here or there or whatever. So why and how take that leap for the Apogee school?
Yeah, so I will say this as tactfully as I can, because I know there's a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, who send their kids to public school, whether values align or they just can't afford something else, or they don't have the time or the resources, whatever. I totally get that. So I'm not poo-pooing anybody who out of necessity feels like they have to send their kid to public school. But between Los Angeles, which I am diametrically opposed to their value set in the LAUSD where we used to live, and then in Nevada, where good news is no income tax, very low property tax, very low taxes across the board, you kind of get what you pay for. And the public schools here are ranked like 49th out of 50th in the nation. So with our two choices, staying in LA or moving up to Vegas, there was just no chance in hell I was going to send my kids to public school. And so we looked around at some private schools. My wife and I have faith, but we're not particularly denominational. So, a Lutheran school or a Catholic school didn't really work for us. We looked at a couple other things. And then this opportunity just came around, like divine intervention, to be like, hey, you can partner up with these two guys I already knew and had respect for, and open your own thing. And so we put some feelers out, and there was about 8 families at the jiu-jitsu place where we've really built our community in Vegas. There's about a half dozen other people that had heard Tim Kennedy on a variety of podcasts, and we launched the school with about 18 or 20 students to start. And it's just been huge blessing for our family. Ton of work for my wife. All I had to do was write 50% of the check up front with our business partner that we opened the school with. So I got off easy, just stroking a check. But her and her partner, Andrea, have done a ton of work, and it's paying off. Like, it's growing the exact community that we want in an educational infrastructure.
Taylor, okay, so, and you can tell me past if you want, but if somebody's listening to this going, dang, like, we actually have some time and we could do something like this. We've got little kids and we've got a jiu-jitsu community, blah, blah, blah. Time-wise, so if somebody wanted to do this, what time-wise commitment would they be looking at? What's the ramp up, and what's a ballpark of dollars they would need to get it started?
Yeah, so we started with 20 grand in seed money. I have no problem being totally transparent about that. So 20 grand in seed money. And then there's kind of 2 routes. We wanted to go the more official route, quote unquote, of leasing a space inside of a community building so it looks and feels like a school, even though technically everybody's registered as a homeschooler and we're just running like a co-op. We hired guides. Can't call them teachers, but we hired guides and coaches. So, we needed about 15 or 20 paying students at about 10 grand a year for it to make sense and pay for the facility and the guides and whatnot. But I know there's some people that are just getting together. They want to use the curriculum that Apogee is coming up with. The very, very minute royalty fee to Apogee pays for building all the curriculum and the projects and whatnot. And some people have just launched as a homeschool in their backyard. So you can go one of many routes with this. But I think to your point, I can't think of anything more important than guiding the path of my kid's future. Like the reality is my wife is a really accomplished human being. She could go back to being a program director in nonprofit, or she could be a top producing realtor and add, pick a number, $100,000, $200,000 in financial value to our household. But luckily we're blessed enough that I can work hard enough to pick up the bills, and she can really, chart the path and the direction of our kids, which to me, all right, we give up, I don't know, $1 million in earnings over the next 15 years, but my kid won't be a psychopath. So it seems like
kind of a good trade-off.
Yeah.
Dude. And I think too, I have 4 daughters and a son, and you got a little 6-year-old girl. We have not done a good job as a society celebrating motherhood, or even kind of the idea of the homemaker as a career, right? And it doesn't mean that you can't also go start a school. Like you could do stuff that is outside of the home if you want. But I think it's such a missed opportunity to give the freedom and the space to go $1 million versus, hours and hours and hours with my kid. I mean, and I get it. Not most, a lot of people need dual income. I get it. Right. I get that. But if possible, is there a way to make sacrifice? And, or even if you're not talking about yourself, is like, are we talking to our little girls? Are we still asking them the same question that we're asking the little boys? Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And you're defined by what you do. Kind of unfortunate.
Yeah. Because of my job as a loan officer, I have this very interesting dynamic where I've had a direct portal and window into people's finances for the last 25 years. So I would almost push back a little bit on the statement of like, all people or most people need dual income. It's like, well, that's true. Most families need dual income if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses.
Right.
And, you wanted to go to USC instead of Cal State LA, and you want to drive a $90,000 BMW instead of a $30,000 Toyota Camry. And you have to have the new $1,700 cell phone every single month, right? Or every single year. And it's like, there's certain sacrifices we can make. We were talking to a family who we really thought was a model match, and they're like, the price is pretty steep. And it's like, well, yeah, it is. I mean, it's an investment in your kids. And I know you guys like on a very personal level, I know what you spend in boutique gym memberships and car X over car B, and $300 a month in whatever boba tea or Starbucks. Like there's certain financial sacrifices you make, and we just decided as a family when my son was born that my wife wanted to make that sacrifice, and that there was more important ways to contribute to the household instead of just financially. I'm not saying it's fun or easy. I'd rather have the extra 150 grand a year in income that she brought in, but trade off for that quality time with our kids. It's just, it's been our choice, and it's been great.
Yeah, dude, killer. In your opinion, what's the role of the father?
Oh, that's a really good answer. That's a really good question. And I think I have a very interesting insight into children because I have a 22-year-old son who I did not meet until he was 15. And the very first time I met him, I was like, no DNA test needed, although the court made me get one. I was like, that's clearly my kid. Like nature versus nurture. He was so much me at 15, and I didn't even know he existed, and he didn't know I had existed. Like we had literally never met each other, and meeting him was like, in very many ways, meeting a 15-year-old version of me. So that kind of blew my whole mind on this nature versus nurture argument. I'm like, it turned out great, and I had nothing to do with him for 15 years. And so the way I look at it is kind of, this metaphor for like the invisible hand of the free market, right? The free market is just millions of interactions between people exchanging value for service or money for service. And the free market is kind of this mystical hand that kind of guides them. And I think in some ways that's the same job as the father, right? Like I can't force Gabriel to do jujitsu. If he decides he's having a pissy day and he wants to sit on the mat and be angry at it, like I'm not going to make a scene and fight with them about it. But what I can be is I can be that guiding hand of like, well, dad got up at 4:45 this morning and did jujitsu at 6 before he had to put in an 8 or 10 hour workday so he could get off on time to go see you at jujitsu. Do we really want to be the type of family that just quits and sits on the mat? He's like, oh man, okay, let me get back at it. So it's like, you can't force any human being to do anything. But I think as fathers, we can be the guiding hand, like kind of the invisible hand of the free market, showing them our values, explaining to them what our family does and does not do. And I'm not like some hippy dippy, I can't discipline my kids, because we do. But at the end of the day, if my son's going to talk back to my mom or to his mom, my wife, he's going to talk back to his mom. And then it's my job to like step in and help course correct. And you can't beat them to death till they do the right things. Although sometimes I really wish I could, because kids can be frustrating. But yeah, I think it's our role just to be that guiding hand. And then I think it's my wife's job to be the nurturer, right? It's like I sometimes have to be a little bit more heavy-handed, and she has to remind them that there's nothing more important in the world than the two of them. So that's kind of the balance we have.
Yeah, you used the word explain to them, right? And you have a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old who are in the home right now. So talk to me about your philosophy on explaining something to your kid, because then do they want an explanation for any time that you say, hey, X, Y, or Z? So they go, okay, well, tell me why. So because I don't think it's I'm not looking for anything here other than I do think it's important to have conversations with our kids. And so for you, what do you mean by explain, and how does that come to fruition in the home?
Yeah, I love that question, because I'm going to steal this directly from, and you might know her name, Dr. Becky something. She's like a child psychologist. She's got a bunch of great content out there. Becky Richard, I can't remember her name. Anyway, I saw something from her that totally articulated kind of the way I feel, and then gave me some additional tools with it. And what she said is like, your job as a father is to make sure that the kids understand and trust their inner compass. And so she gave the explanation of like, you're really pissy, or you're having a bad day, or you're mad at the kids or whatever. And the kids say, hey, what's wrong? And you just say, nothing, it's fine. It's like, well, what we've done as a parent is, instead of reinforcing their intuition and their knowledge and their like emotional intelligence, we've taught them to distrust their inner compass. And this was probably about a year ago. I had seen her explain this. And sure enough, I'm running through the house. I'm trying to I forgot that I had to do a business podcast. So I'm trying to put on a dress shirt, because I had some bloody t-shirt on. Yep. And I was mad at a client, and I was mad at one of my employees. And I was just in a rut. And Gabriel happened to be home, and he's like, he just saw me running by, kind of ignored him. And he goes, Dad, are you mad at me? And I was just about to say, no, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Just shut up, kid. Everything's fine. I got to get back to work. But I stopped for 30 seconds. Like, it was only 30 seconds. And I was like, hey, buddy, just so you know, I am absolutely not mad at you. I'm mad at work. I'm mad at Chris, because he's got this marketing project that was supposed to be done 2 days ago. It's not done yet. I'm in a rush because I'm supposed to be on a call in 5 minutes. Like, Dad's just a mess today when it comes to work, but it has nothing to do with you. I am not mad at you at all. And I could see like the light bulb, the smile, everything just went off, because I reaffirmed that his inner compass was right. He knew Dad was pissed off, right? Like, everybody had the sixth sense of stuff. And so I don't think it's like, okay, we're going to sit down at the dinner table and have an hour-long explanation about life. I think it's more, when I say explain, it's just in these micro moments, how can you explain to your kids what's going on in life, in business, on what you expect out of them, about what they expect about us, and then with the intent of just constantly reaffirming that their inner compass is not. And then when their inner compass is off and you have to correct them or you have to discipline them, it means so much more, because you've taken the time in those moments to affirm their course. So it's like, when you do have to change their course because they really are screwing up something, it's not just like, 10 rounds with Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, how often do we do that to so many people, to teammates, employees, our spouse, our kids, where our feelings or our attitude in the moment, we're just like a bulldog right through it, and our bulldozer going through and not pausing to explain.
Totally.
And you're talking 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And do you want to be, and I think this is critical for fathers, like you create peace and stability in your home. And that is most important when shit's hitting the fan, not when things are going well, right? It's like, well, dad was in a bad mood, or I had a hard work day. It's like, dude, so what? Like, those are the moments where you show up with peace and stability and just pause and go, hey, this isn't you, this is me, whatever the thing is. And we're not talking a lot of extra time here. We're talking an awareness of your impact through the way you're showing up. And dude, these are the moments that matter the most. Like, we want our kids to trust us and not be like looking out the window, dad's home. Did he have a good day or a bad day at work? Like, that sucks. Yeah. And that's 100% on you as a dad. Like, bro, don't be that guy that your family's walking around on eggshells. And there have been times that that's been true for me. Right. And I realize, like, dude, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, no, I've been there too. Everything I'm expressing right now is just trial and error. I've
learned
8 years and taking in a lot from people like you, from Front Row Dads, and it's just like, we're all just a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I know if I was listening to this, I'd be wondering. I remember you telling me the story at a Front Row Dads event. But okay, you've got a kid on the way, and then hey, by the way, you have a 15-year-old. Talk to us about this story. You shared a little bit about meeting him and the connection, and then now he's 22. So 7 years later, how is that relationship?
Yeah, so it's wild, man. Just like to set the scene, we've got a 2-year-old. My wife is like 8 months pregnant with my daughter. I go to the mailbox and come back with this big package from the county of Los Angeles that's like, hey, we think you have a kid in New York. We'd like you to come in for a DNA test. And I was like, well, that's weird. I've never had sex in New York. But apparently people can move. And, it turns out a wild business trip ended up in the conception of my son, Jonathan, who's an awesome kid. Fast forward 15 years. And, for his benefit, I won't tell you all the stuff that came out of this. 15 years later, find out through a DNA test with the county of Los Angeles that, turns out I do have a kid in New York. So, in the haze of all of this, I guess I checked a box. The petitioner or whatever it's called could contact me, which I gave him all my contact information. Jonathan's mom, who I frankly did not really remember, called me, and we had a couple hour conversation, and that conversation put me at peace with she did everything she felt was in the best interest of my son, John, at those moments in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at some point, she needed help. The state required her to get help. And that's how I found out that I had a son. And so flew out to New York, got to meet him. And he's just a wonderful kid. I mean, in the pantheon or the on the spreadsheet of 15-year-olds that I could have inherited, I hit the lotto because he's just a good kid. His mom did a great job with him. Hard worker, still finishing college out in New York and working like 2 full-time jobs. Just a great dude. And I don't get to see him as much as I would like to because kind of like going back to LA, it's a little hard for me to get to New York, and he's working and doing school, and he comes out here when he can. But, we were actually just in Hilo, Hawaii, out by you earlier this year for about 10 days. He's integrated super well with our family. My kids love him. My son just is enthralled to have a big brother that knows everything about video games and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. My wife's been a saint and really accepted him into the family. And it's, it's gone as good as can possibly.
Yeah, dude, beautiful, beautiful story, right? From getting a package in the mail, right, and having a 8-month pregnant wife to where you're at now. Like, dude, what a cool story. And just seems like it just all aligned and worked out really well. For the family.
Yeah, I can't. really can't hope for anything better, right? With that convergence of events, it could not have worked out better. And
Yeah.
we've been able to help him out a little bit, and he's helped us see some stuff. My wife had a few rough days. I'm not going to lie. She might have gone to her mom's house just to process it and cry a lot.
I'm sure.
But my wife's 10 years younger than me, so when she came back, I'll never forget this. She was like, "Well, I was 12 years old when that kid was conceived, because we got married when I was 35 and she was 25. She's like, I was pretty sure you had sex before we met. So, I guess this is just how it is, and we'll figure it out together, and we'll roll with the punches." And can't say enough good things about Jonathan, but for sure can't say enough good things about my wife, Karina. She's
Man, I've been toying with the revamping the vision of our family. Like, what's the vision of our family? And when I think about why does the Shout family exist, and I mean, this could really be said about any of us dads who are really leaning into family,
right.
But it's our vision is to preserve and nurture. And here's the words I want to share with you: the beautifully messy essence of what family means. And the reality is like, dude, there is no, perfect, whatever you would deem as perfect kind of family with a mom, with the grandma and the grandpa on both sides and this and that. And it's like, dude, family is messy. And I kind of think that's the point is, my dad always says you marry an idea, not a person, because there's so much that comes with it, right? It's like we vowed to be together and then now you have another kid. We vowed to be together and now your mother-in-law's freaking nuts, or whatever it might be.
Right.
There are just stories and stories, but the point is, I think we pursue this perfect idea, but really what it is this beautifully messy family is the thing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. It's interesting because I had a failed marriage before I met Karina. And it's weird to say I'm glad that marriage failed because I found Karina and I have the kids that I have, and life worked out the way it was supposed to. But I do sometimes think if I had the tools at 30 that I now have at 45, would that first marriage had been successful, right? Because after we got divorced and I felt like an epic failure and everybody was doing the whole "I told you so," you guys were not compatible, blah, 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 blah. I'm like,
yeah,
maybe you told me 3 years ago. But anyway, I remember going to a therapist because I was like, I got through it pretty quickly, but I'm like, if I'm ever going to get married again, I am a mess. I feel like a failure. So I want to go talk to somebody about it. So I found this gal who's awesome. Shout out to Dr. Laura Buckley in Pasadena. And she's like, yeah, the problem with marriage, especially because my ex-wife and I met and did the long distance relationship. It's like, especially when you're doing a long distance relationship, you can fill in all the gaps with your ideal. So it's like, you guys are seeing each other mostly in a travel situation or at a hotel or whatnot. Of course, she's not the type of person that leaves wet towels on the bed. But then you get married and you live with each other for a few years. And the reality of oh yeah, Scott farts and Karina leaves wet towels on the bed. That shit's for real, right?
Yeah.
It's no longer you have this idealized vision of this person in your head. And I think that's where you either grow together or you grow apart and you end in divorce. And so, man, I love that. I love that description of the messiness, because that's where the magic's made, right? When you can get through that messiness.
For sure. Next question for you is, when did you embrace fatherhood? So it's like you have a 2-year-old, you have an 8-month-old on the way, you find out you have another kid. A lot of men, it's either like they were excited and planning and working on having a kid and they hear this moment you're going to be a dad, or it's when the first baby's born or walking or talking or whatever. For you, when did you go, man, this matters? My role matters and I really want to show up for this in life?
Man, nobody's asked me this question before, and you're going to make me cry because I remember exactly when it was. And a friend of mine had told me, and I'm so glad he told me, because I would have felt like a loser. And he's like, hey, my wife was pregnant with our first kid. He's like, hey, Scott, just want to let you in on a little secret. And I'm like, all right, let's go. He's like, you're going to feel worthless for about a year and a half. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, man, the kid doesn't talk, doesn't have any personality. Your wife's going to be breastfeeding. I know your dynamic. She's going to be doing most of the nurturing and the caring. Like the
Mm-hmm.
kid has no personality. He's like, for the first 2 years of my daughter's life, I felt like there was something wrong with me because I didn't feel particularly connected to this kid.
Yeah.
And my wife, who obviously grew the child and birthed the child and everything and was breastfeeding the child, she felt all in on like moment one. I was just kind of like, what do I do? Right. And so I was kind of mentally prepared for that. And thank God, because there was times where I would work 12, 13, 14-hour days and I'd be like, oh yeah, I got to go home. I got a kid there waiting for me. Right. But I'll never forget, we were living on Bella Court in Valencia, and my son was really having a hard time sleeping in his own room at like a year and a half, 2 years, like right when they can start to talk and have a little bit of personality. And I think we even still had him like quarantined in a crib because if we had given him a bed, he would just get out every night. And so I would go in there and I would fall asleep on the floor with my hand like up. I'm going to cry, man. Up on the crib and wait till he falls asleep. And then I would like army low crawl out of the room.
Yes.
And I remember I'm army low crawling and he woke up and he's just like, Dad. And he couldn't express this, but the way he said Dad was like, are you still there? Fucking dead, man. And I was like, man, that's the moment that matters.
Yeah.
That we're just there. I hope other dudes have cried on your podcast. I got to be honest, I haven't listened to a lot of episodes, but I hope you've made some other dads cry.
It's happened. And here's the thing. It's like, that is that like linchpin piece inside of you that goes like, dude, this kid needs me in a way that he doesn't need. There's not a other single person on this planet who can meet that need.
No, there's no
that's
chance.
your opportunity. It's your responsibility and your opportunity. And I just love going back to those moments, dude. Yes, the army crawl, the like, please don't wake up. I'm so tired. The hand in the crib. So they just like know you're there while you're just trying to get some sleep.
Yeah.
And then those significant moments where you go like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Life is so full, but wait a second. There's this whole other layer of meaning and purpose, like that rises above the mortgages or the insurance or the whatever it is that you and I do to, feed, that seems so important. Dude, what a beautiful moment. And I think it's so critical, like that your friend shared that and that you've probably shared that with others.
Oh,
because if that stuff doesn't get shared, dudes end up just kind of falling too much into the, I guess my job is to work. And I think the problem is, or can be, if a dude's not welcomed into fatherhood through like Front Row Dads or the work that I'm doing, if they're not welcomed in by a brother, by a friend to say that, what happens, I think, is baby's born, breastfeeds, mom decides the type of diapers, mom decides the type of food or formula or kindergarten or what school. And I think sometimes dads wake up, their kids 14, 15, 16, they're like, oh my God, I don't even have a relationship because I never jumped in the game. I just kind of worked, and it's a missed opportunity where it's like, dude, that kid needs you so much. And so I think it's important for us to invite dudes in early and let them know, like, dude, you matter. But it might not happen for you when you think it will.
Yeah, it matters so much. And like, I'm pretty openly political. But the more that I've dug into the work of being a father, the more I realize that, most of what we think are political problems are really just societal problems because in large part, I don't think dads lean in the way that maybe we used to. I think like the family unit obviously wasn't what it used to. I don't think we have these rites of passage where it's like, my wife's father, her parents were never married. Her mom lives down in North Hollywood. By the way, I just have to say, I also have the world's best mother-in-law. And my father-in-law lives up in Gilroy. He runs a working ranch. And when I see the kids working on that ranch with their parents, and they have these clear rite of passages, right? It's like you ride a horse for the first time. Your dad teach you how to shoot a gun. You do a whole work day on Saturday with your family, either because they want you to learn those lessons or they actually need the financial income from the young boy, teenage
Yeah.
son working on that farm. It's just a whole different dynamic. And
Yeah.
you can see the respect and you can see the, I guess the word I'm looking for is maybe lineage or
Yeah.
consistency throughout, where it's like, I think a lot of Americans have either lost that father mother role completely, right? Or they only have one or the other. And then there's not like these clear rite of passages or adult moments. And so that's something, you know, as my son's 8 and he's like a giant for his age. So like his peers at jujitsu and at the school are like 10, 11, 12. We're like, oh, we got to start thinking about some of these like adult rites of passages
Yeah.
that reminds him like you're not a kid anymore, you have more responsibility. And we did one of those this year with him being able to shoot a gun for the first time. We went out
Nice.
together. I got a trainer and had him work with Gabriel. And yeah, so it's like, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just feel like so much could be corrected in society by better fathers leaning in.
Yeah. Agreed. I think like if you want to have a shift in our nation, it has to happen from fathers loving and serving their homes. That's where it will happen. Scott, how is your relationship? Do you have a relationship with your dad currently?
It's probably part of the reason for the crying, right? I currently do not have a close relationship with my dad, and he was just like a superhero to me growing up. One of the hardest working guys I've ever met in my entire life. We've had a real strained relationship for about 4 or 5 years, and this kind of relates to a funny story at Front Row Dads. You and I have both been on these retreats together in different groups of fatherhood, similar to the group you're running, similar to Front Row Dads. And you know, usually when I'm in those events, I get a lot of great nuggets out of them.
Right.
But I'm kind of like, I don't know, I deflect with comedy frequently. And I'm just like, I'm very much like a process and structure guy. It's like, cool, we had the conversation, Ned. Now I'm going to go through and I'm going to do the checklist and I'm going to do the bullet points. So anyway, so we're at Front Row Dads. We did this exercise on journaling and fears and stuff like that. And I ended up writing 5 pages of notes on questions I need to ask myself about repairing the relationship with my dad. Should I do it? What's the benefit for him, for me, for my kids? And I just had a real amazing day where my head and my heart was like super open to new input. I was kind of just like in the zone and like in flow with everything the presenters were kind of walking us through. Even the breathing exercises, which I kind of sometimes like poo-poo and I'm like, yeah, this hippie shit doesn't work for me. I was like really in tune with the breathing exercises. So I'm sitting in my hotel room that night reflecting on the day. And I'm like, man, this is so weird. Like, why was I so much more open to today's experience than I've ever been in the past at Front Row Dads? And I was like, oh, yeah, Bronstedt gave me a bunch of mushrooms at breakfast. And like, I didn't take enough mushrooms to have like a psychedelic trip, but it was definitely on the higher end of microdosing where I was just like in the moment absorbing all the stuff. So, not that I'm a proponent of drug use, but if I do repair the relationship with my dad, it will have something to do with mushrooms.
We'll thank the mushrooms for it.
Yeah.
Dude, that's hilarious, bro. That's hilarious. So let me ask you a question about your dad.
Yeah.
What's one thing that you appreciated about your dad? And then what's one thing you wish your dad would have done differently?
It's the same thing, man. It's his work ethic. Like he really taught me the value of hard work and getting stuff accomplished. And I am forever grateful for that. And I have no problem outworking the competition or trying new things or, I didn't start jujitsu until I was like 41. And I'm like, I'm going to get great at this before my body breaks down. Right. And I think just that tenacity all comes from my father. You know, the downside when you have that kind of work ethic, it can become a work addiction. And there was many times where it's like, dude, you had one job, but get me to roller hockey on Saturday. And I think almost every roller hockey game in my, junior year of high school, one of the people that worked for him drove me to the game, and I'm like, dude, I just wanted you to come to like a game. We sucked. We were horrible. I couldn't score a goal to save my life, but I was really good at running into people defensively. Would have liked to see that, right? And I'm sure he came to a game or two, or maybe even half of them, and I'm just catastrophizing in my head. But I distinctly remember the anxiety as like I wasn't quite old enough to have a driver's license. I wasn't quite cool enough to have older friends that drove. I had to be in this game by this time. And just the overwhelming anxiety of like, well, my dad's got to work. You know, he worked all week, of course, but now he's also got to work on Saturday because he's the manager. And so I wonder, you know, am I going to get to this on time? Is it okay to go bug him? If I bug him once, do I bug him twice? Do I just go to Aaron, his right-hand man, and say, Aaron, I know you're going to be the one to end up taking me to the game anyway, so can you just drive me over there now? And it's like, that's a real memory that like lives in my body. And so, you know, it's the same thing that I appreciate about him. And I wish that we could have had some control or conversation around.
Yeah. So how have you taken the work ethic and used that to your advantage while not sacrificing your kids? Is it possible to do both?
Yeah, I think, you know, I've just made some hard lines in the sand, which right now, you know, the mortgage industry is suffering. Like, and it's not because property values are going down. It's just because rates are high enough and inventory is low enough where there's not a lot of transactions. And I don't get paid on property values. I get paid on transactions. So it is a season of life where I could convince myself, oh, every night I've got to be at a business mixer and a YPN event. And, you know, I should just work an extra 2 hours and cold call more realtors or warm call more realtors. And I'm like, look, man, as long as we can pay the bills, it's more important that 3 out of 5 days a week, I'm off by 4:30 and I take the kids to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So that I can have a conversation with them about what they did well. And we can, you know, ride in the car together and recap their day. And I can talk to the kids about emotional intelligence. And it's not easy. It's super freaking hard, especially when I commit to stuff like this, take an hour out of my day to be with you. And then it's like, you know, when we hang up, it's going to be 3:00. I've got about an hour to catch up on work. Work never ends, as you know, in the business you're in. There's always something more you could do. But just being able to check out where it's like when you're at work and focus. And then when you say, and hey, different strokes for different folks and different seasons of life financially. If you say you can be off at 4:30, be off at 4:30. If you've got to work till 7:30, that's okay too. Like we as fathers have to provide for our family. But if you say you're going to be off at 7:30, be off at 7:30, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Happy hour early and be there in time. I think something that I would not have felt comfortable saying out loud to like the guys at work or the referral sources is I wouldn't have felt comfortable saying something I can say now, which is like, hey guys, I got to check out early because I got to be home in time to put the kids to bed. And, you know, whether that's 10 minutes or an hour or just giving them a kiss before they fall asleep, like that stuff really matters. Right. And I don't think I could have said that 3 or 4 years ago before.
What was the shift for you?
I don't know, man. I think I just reached an age where, you know, my dad, because of how hard he worked and how hard he ran his body and then legit bad genetics, you know, by the time he was my age, he had already had a heart attack, a stroke, and quadruple bypass.
Dang.
And I remember talking to the surgeon who did, I can't remember, triple or quadruple bypass, one of those. I remember talking to the surgeon who did the surgery because my ex-father-in-law used to be the head of cardiology at USC. It was very fortuitous to have a father-in-law who's in charge of cardiology when your dad needs surgery. The cardiologist came out and he was like, and the surgeon came out and they're like, hey man, they're like, if your dad was trying to kill himself, he could not have done as much damage to his heart and the plaque and the blockages as there is right now at 50 years old. So you got to really take care of yourself and be careful. And so I think just getting to that age where my dad started to have really bad health problems and, you know, I don't smoke, I work out a lot more, I'm skinnier than he was at this point of life. But it's like he really tore himself up and there was some genetics working against him. So I started to get to that age where I was like, oh man, where I am right now in my age at 44, I had already been, when my dad was 44, I had already been home from the army for 3 years. And it's like, I remember how bad his health was at times. And so just realizing that I waited till later in life to have kids and like, I might not get as much time with them as I would like. I've got to make the moments count now.
Yeah.
we're part of a group where a very healthy guy just dropped dead in his bathtub at 43 and left 4 beautiful daughters behind. And it's like, that time for him as a father is over.
Yeah.
And that can
Yeah.
happen to us at any time. Trying to do all the things to not get there. But I think I just had a realization a couple of years ago of like, oh yeah, this time is not promised. Like getting off today at 4:30 and taking the kids to jiu-jitsu, that's promised.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny how the shift happens. It's like, now, would you agree that when you tell somebody, hey, I'm going to go be with the family, it's almost said with like a badge of honor?
Oh yeah, there's conviction to it. It's just,
yeah. And then I think that those who are standing around still, having a beer in their hand, which is fine. There's this like,
there's nights where I enjoy the beer. Let's not overdo it.
But I think that there's this hope, like, oh man, I wish I had that, right? Or I wish I was doing that. And so they just don't have that conviction quite yet. But it's longed for. Hey, 2 final questions for you.
Yeah.
And I already love it. This podcast called Fatherhood Field Notes, you've been open your field notes to us. The mantra is rebel and create. And you're already clearly a rebellious guy, right? Rebelling against school, starting your own school. So that's like an example, right? It's like, what's something that you're rebelling against so that you can create something else? And it could be as big as like, whoa, clearly we rebelled against school and we created our own school. Or it could be we're rebelling against having cell phones at the dinner table. You might not be dealing with that with a 6 and 8-year-old quite yet. But what's something that you are currently sort of passionate, obsessed about, that you're rebelling against and wanting to create something in its place?
Yeah. So this is going to be kind of a weird roundabout, but I grew my business in a very, very, very hyper progressive community in Los Angeles, California.
Mm-hmm.
And for the long time, partially because I was just so entrenched in work, and partially because social media wasn't as big as it was, and partially you grew up like, oh, don't talk about politics or finance at the dinner table. It just never really came up, right? And so I built a lot of successful business relationships with people who, like, I disagree with, but I think they're good people.
Yeah.
Problem is, on the other side of the coin, a lot of people that I used to work with have the opinion that if I disagree with you politically, you are also a bad person. So Scott Groves 10 years ago probably would have hid that and just been like, all right, whatever, I vote libertarian, or maybe I'm going to vote for Trump, or maybe I support RFK or whatever. I'll just kind of be quiet about that, or I'll hide it or whatnot. But now that I have kids, I'm like, no, I can't be quiet about that stuff, because I think personally, the hardcore progressive vision for the country is not where I want my kids to live. Like, right. There's plenty of room, and socially, I've always been a libertarian. Socially, I'm about as open as it gets, but there's certain things where I'm like, I draw the line here. Like, now it's kind of time to speak up, and I try not to be too argumentative or too crazy about it. I try to be kind of tactful when I bring political opinions to the open market or to social media. But I'm just not scared about losing those relationships anymore, because I'm like, one, we can do business together and be diametrically opposed on like our political views. If you think I'm a bad person because of my political views, well, then quite frankly, fuck you. I'll go find somebody else to do business with me, because like my views are now more closely related to how I want to raise my kids, not just, something I see on the nightly news. So I think that rebellion, and trust me, man, it's got me in some trouble and it's cost me a lot of money, and I've just kind of accepted it is what it is.
Yeah. Oh man, what a great answer. And that's a hard shift to make when you're in sales, right? Because we want to be chameleons at times, or hide it. But I think it's really important too that we want our kids to have a voice. And clearly, this is my perception. I was going to say, when the tables are turned, like, we're supposed to accept that other view. Right. And so it should be the same way as like, you can still accept my view and we can still break bread together. And I think that's kind of the missed opportunity in our day and age, is like, we're so polarized that we can't disagree and then go have a sandwich. And that's kind of like the beauty of, I think, what we were kind of built on from the beginning, is that's the point. The point is that, life is different for different folks, but we can still enjoy like family and food and time together while we kind of work to build a community that we can all enjoy together. So
Yeah.
I love it,
Dude,
dude. That's a great answer.
my all-time favorite jujitsu training partner, we see each other every single day for at least an hour and a half, sometimes 5 hours a day. He is like an avowed communist, and I am a hardcore libertarian. And we argue all the time on Instagram and whatnot, and we talk shit about each other's political beliefs. And then we go respectfully roll in jujitsu, and then we go have like a lunch, and we'll have a whiskey and a cigar once in a while.
Yeah.
And we have great, we're great friends. And
That's
there's
how it should be.
plenty of room in the country for that. And somehow we've lost sight of that.
Yeah. But see, and maybe we haven't lost sight of it as much as we think, right? Like you're doing it, right? I think about my own team members at my company is there are very different views, but then there are so much more in common that we connect on. It's just not what you hear about, on social media. That's, seems more polarizing than it is possibly. All right, my friend, this has been incredible. I'm sure we could talk for hours. Final question is legacy question. So imagine 30 years from today, you're standing in a cul-de-sac peering into your children's homes. Your 8 and 6-year-old are now, late 30s. They have their own families. What is it that you see being played out in that house that just puts a big old smile on your face to go, man, I showed up as a father the last 30 years?
Yeah. That's another great question. And I wish I had been more prepared for these. But it's like my hope for them is that they experience family, right?
Mm-hmm.
My wife's family, with all their flaws, just like everybody else's family, they're really close. I've hugged my mother-in-law significantly more times than I've hugged my own mom. And my parents are really great people. Like they're real. Even my dad, who I'm kind of estranged from right now, he's a great dude. They just they had kids when they were 19 years old and kind of didn't have the playbook and didn't have access to tools that like you and I have. But we were and have never been very close as a family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I would say, if I'm looking forward into the future, one, they have a family, right? They have a spouse that they love and kids that they adore. Hopefully I'm still around and they're taking care of mom and dad as far as like keeping the family nurturing close. And then, I think we're going into a time where for a lot of people, for the majority of human history, it's either do what you love and be broke or work really hard and be somewhat miserable but make a lot of money, right? It's like I think of my friend Mike, who's doing exactly what he wants to do. He's a struggling comedian. He's like working to like hone his craft and whatnot, and he's dead broke, right? And I love him to death, and he kind of counts on the charity of people to keep him afloat until he makes it, right? And then on the other side, you and I know a lot of people who have built 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-figure businesses. And in the process, they've burned out their endocrine system and given themselves diabetes, or they've ended in divorce, or and it's like, okay, cool. Well, now you got a ton of money in the bank, but something in your life has kind of like really suffered because of it. But I think we're going into a market cycle with, whether it's AI or technology or whatnot, where there will be an opportunity to monetize anything you're passionate about. And so I would love a future where my kids are simultaneously passionate about what they do and they love it and it lights them up. And because of the scale of technology, they can make a ton of money doing it.
Yeah, they could feed themselves well. I love it.
That's what I kind of look forward to.
I love it, dude. I love the idea of setting our kids up for that sort of success. And then the words you said was experiencing family. And as we've shared over the last hour, that experience is I wouldn't use the word happy. I'd use the word joy, right? Like it's beautifully messy and being able to experience the fullness of that. And like you said, the closeness, right? The closeness that you've experienced in your wife's family is that it's a mess, but they're close, and creating that same experience for our kids. Scott, bro, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your life. What a wonderful time to connect with you, learn more about you, what an incredible dad you are, man you are, husband, business leader. Keep doing what you're doing, loving and serving all those around you. And thank you for being here today, my friend.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
All right. Until next time. What an incredible conversation, connection. I just love Scott's vulnerability, openness, honesty. And I think that's what stuck out to me the most, as you step into your role as a father, is to stand behind your beliefs, to be open and honest about your beliefs, not the guy who's like waving a flag to be like, this is what I believe and why I believe it, but to not hide the truth of who you are. And really, as he shared that, it was, what kind of world do I want my kids living in? And based on your convictions of what that world looks like is to not back down or hide the truths that you think are important for a world where your kids will live in it. Love that. I'm convicted by that. And I think, a lot of times we can hide behind, well, I don't want to jeopardize work, or I don't want to be offensive, this, that, or the other. And when you think about, well, what kind of world do I want for my kids? I just really like Scott's approach. And it seemed out of a place of love, but also of conviction, an area that I feel like I could continue to grow in. If these podcast conversations are helpful, please write a review. It helps spread the word that fatherhood matters. And then even more importantly, whether you include this, sharing this podcast or not, shoot a friend a text that's a great dad and just say, hey, I know you're a great dad. I've been seeing you. You inspire me. And I just thought nobody's probably telling you, so I wanted to tell you. If you want to include a link of this podcast conversation, that would be fantastic, because us dads need to be encouraged. So I want to say thank you to all you dads out there listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Don't be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, your spouse, and your community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact and create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.